Hello, Richard. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, thank you, Whitney, for attempting to help me with this conversation, which is very
hmm
personal. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would you mind introducing yourself so that we can get an idea of who you are? And then let's get into the reason for the conversation today.
Okay. I'm Richard Day, 71. My great-grandfather and grandmother were part of the London Missionary Society
hmm
when Irvine and Cooney and Weir and Walker, and there were 7 of them that went to London from Ireland and
mm
brought the quote unquote gospel. And they had
mm
meetings in my great grandfather's church, and they accepted it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Grandma went off to be a
That's
worker.
incredible.
Great grand Great grandpa had a whole great big family. So, and that was in the days when they didn't. There was no church to bring people into. And I think
hmm
that's actually a very interesting point for our history, is that there is
hmm
no church to bring people into.
mm
Anyway, so I've been involved in this for a long time. Yeah.
hmm
My main reason for doing this interview is to talk about dying and
hmm
then death,
hmm
because this is where I am in life.
hmm
And I know I'm younger than a lot of people on this website, but here we are. And
hmm
I've been facing this. I've been living with heart failure for the last 15 years.
hmm
Um, Open heart surgery that failed eventually. 11 years later, another one 3 years ago, and then lots of hospitalizations and in and out,
hmm
and thus I stay up at night and often write poetry because
mm
this is my dance with death.
mm
Maybe that's the way I like to say it, which is maybe not the best way. Maybe there's not a best way. Okay.
hmm
Um, Dad was first generation. Mother was obviously third. I'm fourth. And now there's nobody in all of our children and my wife and I, we all left together. And so it's made it very nice as a family to be brought closer.
hmm
Yeah. Let's see.
Could I ask you? You say that you stay up late writing poetry and you're in this dance with death. And I love the way you write that or say that. Would you describe how that dance has changed as your relationship with the church has changed?
Yeah. Our neighbor died 2 or 3 months ago. And I
hmm
told his wife that, and we were very close. And I told her that we know where we are, and we know where Bob is. And that was probably the most comforting thing. And it wasn't planned, but that was probably the most comforting thing that I could have ever said. And I never would have thought to say that at a professing funeral.
hmm
Because there's always this question for people of where do you stand?
hmm
Um, so I'm going to go back to 2023 in February 18th. I was back in the hospital. My aortic valve had failed for the second time. And they were preparing me all night long. They prepared me, and the team would come in and out and talk to me. And before they could put me under anesthesia, I was gone.
Wow.
So I'll try and describe in about 30 seconds what that was like, because it doesn't take much more than that. And yet it's a lifetime. So I passed through the tunnel. At the other end, I was naked. I was prostrate before Christ and before God. God was on his throne, not a great big person, but a person with a white beard. But as it says in the Revelation, different places, talks about the great throne, but surrounding the throne were crystals. And we live here in Alaska, we happen to live in a very mountainous place, and the mountains, to me, are the crystals. And this is sea level to 6,000, 7,000 feet. And there in the midst of it was God, surrounded by these crystals, and every crystal was refracting the light of the jewels that surrounded, that are the 12 gates are made of. So you have all this light just bouncing, going everywhere. And then my attention went to Christ, to Jesus. And he was huge beside me. But he was singing not the song of the Lamb, not the song of the redeemed, but he was singing his own song. And I can't tell you the words, but I can absolutely tell you that there's no music that men have created that even begins to compare with the song that Christ sings. That was so powerful that when I came out, I knew where I'd been. And I knew where I stood. Actually, it's not where we stand. So we know where we bow. Because for me, that's what true worship is. So that was my first definite time that I was gone. A lot of people haven't believed me, and that's okay. I don't need to be believed. But and we also live in the woods. And so one of the things that I love to do is to go out into our woods and lift my arms, raise my hands to our Creator. And then my prayer is that Mother Earth would take me into her breast and hold me tight against her heart and nourish me. And then to enter into the womb and be surrounded by the water of life. And that's those are things that keep me. One of our workers that I've known for all of my life, Steve Pearson, when he finally listened to me, he finally said, "Thank you. I understand where you are now." And because he finally listened, took 3 hours, but he listened. And I said, "This is my Bible now. I don't read my Bible very much anymore. My concentration level has gone way down. I think I have books I'd like to read, but maybe a page or two at a time, and that's about it. But and maybe in saying that that is my Bible, that is my direct connection to what I think of as my most holy Creator. Lots of gods, lots of deities, but we have a Creator. And I spent my life in my work creating things for people as a builder. And my shop has lots of unfinished creations in it. But after I'm gone, they can burn, which is just fine, but they can be saved. I don't really care. But my mother died when I was 27. We had a son with hypoplasty left heart syndrome who died at 7 days. I held him when he was dying. And as one of the workers said, this has been heaven here right now. And so there is heaven on earth, but there is also hell on earth. And people live in hell and people live in heaven. And it's how we look at it, or maybe it's how close our personal connection to our Creator is. We all had mothers. Lots of them are gone. Some weren't mothers as others were. But that's how we came into this earth. And whether they were good, bad, or indifferent, that's no one's to say. But a child knows. So my son-in-law and our daughter and 2 grandchildren live just down the street from us. And we spend a lot of time together. And when we first left the church, we decided that 2 workers that were workers at that time could have my funeral, but I didn't want the other workers to have a part of it. Since then, both of those people have left the work, which is reasonable. I mean, I'm actually very glad for them. And but now with my son-in-law, we talk about what we're going to do for a funeral, which is a whole another subject. And because we were raised with the workers preaching. They weren't, I don't know what they were preaching, but one of the last quote unquote professing funerals I was at, the workers talked about how wonderful the ministry was and spent a half hour talking about the ministry, period. And it just doesn't work. And at this point, I don't know if I even want any workers to come.
Yeah.
Or any of the friends at this point. I was hoping to have a memorial service this summer, like my family, but at this point, my wife isn't able for that kind of company, so we probably won't do that. But different parts of my family are coming, and the ones who have separated themselves from the church, they're actually the most comfort to me. I have an older brother who some of you know from a Hulu interview, Michael. When he found out about my abuse, he was the most comforting. Hasn't been to meetings for 30 years. My sisters dearly loved. Compassion is hard to come by. Bringing up the word compassion brings me to the coronation of Daryl Dolan, of which I happened to be there. And in a convention dining tent full of elders and their wives, and Doyle Smith, Richard Denherter, Rob Newman. And the week before that, I was at Milltown on the grounds, and there were probably 30 overseers crawling around. And I have a confession to make first. And that is, we sat in a Wednesday night meeting with all these workers, three of the friends from here in Alaska. And I thought to myself, what's different about these men? They're just radiant.
Mm.
And so I said, they had the holy anointing oil from God, is what I said.
Mm.
And I said it publicly. And I
Mm.
was very sad that I said it. But
Mm.
because afterwards I realized what I saw was men as trees walking.
Mm.
That's just how I
Mm.
like to put it.
Mhm.
Because I've never seen a group of men with more pride in all my life. And that's really what I was seeing.
Mhm.
After that meeting, I went to Doyle and I said, Doyle, I have 3 friends. And I quote this verse in Psalms 55:14. We had sweet fellowship together. We went into the house of the Lord and we had sweet fellowship. That's verse 14. Verse 19 says, and there were no changes. And I said to Doyle, I said, my friend was Dean Brewer. He lived with me. We were pretty close, but but he was the same creature when he died as he was at 19. Then I went to Rob Newman and I said, Rob, oh, excuse me. First of all, Doyle looked at me, his eyes got big and his jaw dropped and he said nothing. Absolutely nothing. There was not even a look of compassion or empathy. Then I went to Rob and I said, Rob, you know, my cousin is John Vandenberg. And I said, what are we going to do? And he looked at the table and he just shook his head. And he was quiet, speechless. And then I went to a man, an overseer from, I believe, Wisconsin or Michigan. I'm not sure. He was a younger man because he was taking the place of the overseer that had stepped aside. I don't remember his name. But a fairly, maybe in his 40s, maybe I don't think he was 50 yet.
Okay.
And I said, my third friend was Steve Rose.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he too looked at me and said nothing and dropped his head. So I understood by those responses that the ministry didn't have a heart to acknowledge the abuse of men towards other people.
Mhm.
That's what it said to me. I came home from that meeting and immediately started making plans to separate myself. We had our overseer here in Alaska, Scott Price. He came and stayed with us and spent a week. And I tried to help him, and he wouldn't be helped. And one thing that Daryl said in his ordination meeting was, the children are of no consequence that were abused.
What?
He could accept the fact that his sister was raped, but not the children. So, and I was abused by my uncle, Johnny's dad, as a little person. And I didn't know about it till I came home. And then we went into, and I'd already had my surgery. I'd already died. when I came back out again, I wanted desperately to reconnect with the three other people that I went into the work with. I went into work in 76, 75, 76 with Steve Rose and Mark Lotspeech and Phyllis Putty. Phyllis died during COVID. Mark is still alive. Steve is still alive. So I reached out to Steve after that, after my surgery, and we started communicating. Mark never got around to it. And then obviously that was February 18, and we know what happened on March 23rd. And so I got brave enough to start looking on the internet, and I found out what had happened. During that time, I contacted Lauren, but she has given me permission, and so has Audrey. And I made sure of that because I would not mention these names if I didn't get permission.
Mhm.
So then Lauren, while we were talking, she said, I need to get a hold of Cynthia. So I talked to Lauren and Cynthia for about an hour and vomited all of the everything I knew. Or and anyway, so but where does that all lead us? Except to an understanding of what happened to us. And then, and with my uncle, who was a very pedestalized elder, spent years in the work, probably has children in Suriname, probably has children all over the place. I have no idea. I know my two cousins, that's all. But after my first open heart surgery, I contacted him. And mind you, I had no concept at all of what he had done to me. And I didn't call asking for forgiveness, but I realized what I was asking for was compassion. And it's like Christ said, you leave your gift at the altar and you be reconciled to your brother. And I kind of feel like that's one of the hardest things a person can do, is just be reconciled. So that started my journey with my uncle, started my journey with old girlfriends, ex-workers, other workers, and friends that I felt like I needed to be reconciled to. And maybe that leads to this whole thing of how we prepare for death, is reconciliation. That's just my understanding. I've been able to meet friends mostly head on in a very positive way. And all I can say is it has created what I call gems, right? So people say, you didn't bring anything in this world and you're not taking anything out, right? You leave your money behind, you leave everything else behind. But I would contend to say that there are gems that we receive in life. We put them in our pocket. I'm going to show you my mother's rock, just because I can't help it. This is my mother's rock. After she died, I went to her favorite beach and I picked it up and I put it in my pocket, and I've carried it since I was 27. And it's highly polished now because it gets held every day. And I've met people again after lifelong, And I look at them and I just say, I'm putting you in my pocket now because you're a gem.
Mm.
And those gems are jewels and they make up the gates because they're given by our Creator. They're created by Him. They're given to us by Him. And it's expected that we take them with us
Mm-hmm.
as a preparation. And I think when you carry something with you every day of your life, you begin to carry a connection with the dead
Mm-hmm.
that's very, very real.
Mm-hmm.
And my connection with Steve Rose, I obviously shut that off, blocked him on my phone because I was getting way too much information. I worked with Jen DeCheddar to keep my cousin John out of meetings in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I had lots of meetings with Wayne Bechtel in Washington, and I told him if he wanted to happen in the state of Washington, what happened in Arizona and California, then he could bring my cousin back to meetings. But he would create a division that would destroy them. And so between Jen, thank you, Jen,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a lot of work. And I will say that I sent every piece of every letter, email that John sent, they immediately went to Jen. I was family. No one was supposed to know he was in Washington. It was all hush, quiet. And but and for his funeral, I was going to go down, and I was talking with Steve Pearson, and I said, Steve, I can't go. And he said, they've asked me to speak at it. And he said, I just told them I can't go. And so they had the funeral up at his brother's house up in Northern California in the mountains. And there were half a dozen or more, 10 workers there and a couple friends. That was all. And of course, that was all private too, and hush hush. And no one was supposed to know that well, they brought Richard Wolf up from Mexico or wherever he was laboring. They brought Ed Alexander down from Oregon, and Joe Alexander and another man I don't know, and Sally Alexander. And so it was like, who do I want then to support me or support my
Mm-hmm.
family at a funeral?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I want to support? That's not what I want. I don't want that attitude, that spirit, because that's not support. That's not
Mm-hmm.
what we used to call godly support. And so we stand alone. We know that, but we really don't. Because because for myself, um, I've got all these jewels in my pockets, and I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love it. And and there's a young woman here in state who isn't active on CCF, but her mother is, and her mother's been a big help. But we sat in our living room for 3 hours and talked. And she said, Richard, I died. She's not a young woman. I died. I said, so what did God look like for you? And she looked and she said, just like you. A full white beard in his chair, just listening, just listening. And I said, well, that's what we can do. Yeah, we can just listen. And so I have all these pieces of work, these creations that I've made, and some are fairly abstract, and some are very useful, and some are just there to look at. But they're there, and they're what's been created. And so this is what creation is. It 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 happens, and we let it happen, and so the steps for death, the steps for dying, are the same steps that we take every single day. As we were born, so shall we die. And we enter again into the womb. And it's not a frightful thing. There may be pain involved, and there may be all these things that we go through and get to lay in a hospital for a while, and we get to be quiet, and we get to not do this or that. And that's beside the point. But they're steps. And if you think about the birth of a child and the beauty of a newborn, can we not want that again? Can we not want to enter in? I think there's a lot more to that little verse when that man asked, am I going to enter in to my mother's womb again? I think there's a lot more to that. I know there is.
Yeah.
I know there is. Because our Creator will take us back again. Not to be a bride. That's a trigger point for me. I'm sorry.
I'd like to hear about that.
The bride of Christ.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that and why that's a trigger point.
Christ is already has a bride. He's had a bride. If you look in your concordance and you look up the word children, and children's in the plural and the singular of it, it's like over 1,500 times in the Bible. You got bride, one hand. Right? So what did Christ do with children? And what did he say? He said, this is the gospel. And what does the gospel do? It makes children out of adults. So what does that tell you? Is that not a mother? And so I said this to Mark Simmons. I said, Mark, I just feel like our mother has been raped by the workers. And he looked at me and he said, Richard, that's harsh. And I said, I know it's harsh. It's really, really harsh. And then he said, I'm going to take it a step further. That's what Christianity has done. And it's frightening beyond words to me what men have done to the most glorious, precious thing that we have. And that's life. And it's abused. It's inconsequential. It's all of those things which it should never, never be. because it's what Christ held up more than anything else, was his love for the Word of God, his bride, and the love for the offspring, his children. And so, I don't know if I'm out of turn in saying that, but those are my thoughts. Are there revelations? I don't have, that's not mine to say, but they're deep soul confirmation for me of what my Creator is. Whether it's God and Christ and the Holy Spirit as one, they are one. Whether they're three separates, it doesn't really matter to me. But what matters is the unity. A little picture. My son, who's 30, was working with me on a little project, doing some woodwork, and I walked him through it, and he has the strength and I have the knowledge, and so I was guiding him through it. And then we came to the very finishing part, the very end, where the project had to be finished. And I walked away, and he finished it. And I just love thinking about the guidance of a creator with a son, and then saying to the son, you finish it. It's yours. It's yours to finish. And so we take it. And it's probably the most lovely thing that we can do. And so, maybe for those, I mean, we all know that I may have 10 years, I may have 15, I don't know. And that's not the point. But I do know that I am living with heart failure. And I do know that my doctors have said there's really not much more we can do. And that's fine. I've accepted that. And so we make arrangements. And maybe we can read some poetry.
Yeah.
And maybe we can just sit quietly together. And that's, for me, that's the end. Is in quietness and reassurance, and then deliverance. And it's not suffering. Suffering is these poor folks all around the world that are living in hell. But gentle dying is not suffering. It's living with an understanding of a deeper connection to the divinity. My therapist says she wants me to heal. And I say, that's nice, it's wonderful, and I want to heal. We all want to heal. But healing comes through gratitude. Gratitude is the response of the human heart to the divine influence of the grace of God. It's given, it's a free gift, and it's ours. And we hold it. We do things that we shouldn't do, but we say things we shouldn't say, and we go places we shouldn't go. But when we look to the eyes of our soul at the divinity, and we are thankful for it, we heal. And maybe that's what salvation is understanding. Yeah. So
Yeah. Hmm. Do you have any poetry that you would mind sharing with us?
I have a little black book.
Mm-hmm.
I just opened it, and this one
Mm-hmm.
comes. The breaking of the day, when the earth breathes its first warmth of the sun, and the dew rises. So the blackness of darkness, bound to the core of the earth, life freed to dance in the creation of emptiness, held alone, swaying and blending, always light, created by nothing yet, giving of itself to itself, transforming the sky into blackness of light, held but never kept, freed but bound, dancing with all creation into the arms of forever, moving in the essence of nothingness, swaying, blending, transforming, constant in nothingness, till light takes it away, then to dance
Mm-hmm.
in clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And so the morning rises.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate it. I know I'll never look at the Northern Lights without remembering you and your poetry. And I'll tuck you in my pocket, Richard, and carry you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't that a marvelous thing? How we
Mm-hmm.
can carry one another and never, we don't ever have to let anyone go.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the end of reconciliation,
Yeah. Yeah.
is to be held.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's the beginning and it's the ending of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those of us who are nearing this place in time, um, um, comfort is in quietness.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty is in letting go. I'll have to tell you what an old worker said to me one time, and he's gotten a lot of rap for the rest of his life, but so I won't mention his name because it takes away from what he said, which for me was
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. I had
Mm-hmm.
spoken for the first time at convention, and I think I spoke for about 2 minutes. I never got over 5 minutes in my
Mm-hmm.
little bit of time in the work. And he said, Richard, try looking up. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you what my shoes looked like, and I can tell you who was in the front row, but other than that, I don't know. And he said, try looking up. And my dear brother said, take hold of the hope of your salvation. Reach out and take hold of your salvation and let go because we can.
We can.
We can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we can still walk, but we can let
Mm-hmm.
go. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's beautiful.
so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for spending your energy today on sharing with us and reading us poetry and giving us such beauty from your own life. It's incredibly precious to me today to talk to you.
Maybe this is my funeral. Thank you, dear.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Sending you
Thank you.
such love.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep, maybe first of all, take care of your little ones.
Mm-hmm.
Hold them. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I can promise you that.
Thank you.